Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Oh, yeah, here I am. It's the 20th of November. We're counting the days till the Thanksgiving holiday. Welcome to the show. Mondays are hard. Mondays are hard because, I don't know, because we have to jump back into all this crap. And I have to tell you, I don't know if I'm losing my capacity to care about it anymore or even take it in, because I went through the Washington Post today, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and numerous sources that I got through Twitter. And do you know there's absolutely not a goddamn thing I want to talk about? I'm spent, I think, is what it happened. I don't care. Yeah, I'm going to talk about it. I will get to that. I mean, obviously, I'm going to talk about something. But it is, you know, after a while, it's just, yeah, this is what we feared. That the sort of numbing sensation that invariably would arise as a form of self-protection, right? That it would be impossible to continue the level of outrage, of constant outrage and call to action that we initially had to this presidency. And it's a physical and emotional impossibility. And I hate to tell you, I just really feel spent. I read the SOB's tweets, and I barely even read. I mean, I don't even know if I sigh anymore. I just read them, and I'm not even sure there's any reaction at all, except in the recesses of my head, saying something like, just you small, stupid, pathetic, dangerous man. You know, that might happen just in my head, but I move on. Charles Manson dead was all over my Twitter. Manson dead. And I'm thinking, yeah, good. So what? I got nothing to say. I want to revisit Charles Manson because he friggin' died? No, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm apparently not in a good mood. I often don't know the mood I'm in until I start talking here. It's true. That's a little odd. I could tell I was a little, more type A on the drive in. And for any people who are now stuck in what looked like an ridiculously massive traffic jam on the Parkway East, outbound, my heart goes out to you. It was unbelievable. I lost track of it when I go up to the Boulevard of the Allies, so I couldn't see, but it was jam-packed all the way back, and all the entry ramps that I could see from were jam-packed. For all I know, it's backed up through the Fort Pitt damn tunnel. Jesus. I don't know what that is, but at least I was thinking as I breezed by all those poor folks. Ha ha. I thought, well, there but for the grace of God go I. Life is such a crapshoot. I was trying to find a place to park at my at the State Store the other day, the fancy one, near Whole Foods. Well, a parking space. My horse for a parking space. It was unbelievable. So as there were cars, and we were just sort of like circling and circling. This is on the second level, not where Whole Foods is. Forget that. I haven't been to Whole Foods in about a year and a half because first of all, can't stand them. And third of all, I can't deal with that parking nonsense. But so we're all, people are like this. This happens outside the Trader Joe's parking lot, too. And you know what it's like? It's like that game from my childhood that still makes my blood run cold. It's musical chairs. It's just luck. It's you happen to be, yes, you have won. You are in the right spot at the right time as this car pulls out. I hated musical chairs because it was so capricious. It had nothing to do with if you were good or bad or deserved a seat. It had nothing to do with your needs. It was simply dumb luck. And that's the same thing about me breezing into work today as opposed to those poor folks who are stuck in that look to be a 6-mile-long gridlock. Luck. And I think, we have trouble acknowledging that so much of life is exactly that, is total serendipity. Is that another word for luck? Not really. Well, I'll try to soldier on. I don't much feel like it. The New York Times had this great supplement. They've done it before. They put out an entire New York Times Sunday edition for children, and it's wonderful. And it specifically says that if you're an adult, you can't read it, but I didn't follow the rules. I read quite a bit of it, but and I must say I enjoyed it better than the adult version. But one of the things I learned while reading it was something that I have often wondered about, and if I'd bothered to Google, I suppose I could have found out myself, but why the hell do we hold elections on Tuesdays? It's stupid, I'll tell you that, because that's a work day. How the hell are people supposed to necessarily get to the polls, right? So here's the answer. This stems from 1845. And God forbid we should, in 1845, the United States was a rather different nation than it is today. So in 1845, it was decided that Tuesday was definitely the best day to hold elections, largely because of farmers. Isn't that also why we have daylight savings time? Or not? We are not a farmer nation anymore. And all of these things we do because the farmers wanted it, actually summer vacations. It's because of farmers. Families needed their kids. Right? Isn't that what it was? Why the hell all of a sudden should we be off out of school at those in those times? And we never even think to revisit something that was made sense in 1845 but makes no sense now. Most other, I was going to say civilized nations, and how silly of me to say that since we are not one. Most nations hold elections on weekends. Duh. Because people have the time to vote, but not us. Says here, Horse and buggy was the mode of transportation in 1845, and polling sites could be a day's travel away. I bet they had higher voting rates then, with polls being a day's travel away, than we do now. Want to make a bet? I bet. And you couldn't do Sundays because the churches said you couldn't. And something about Mondays wasn't right, and I don't know. And Wednesdays was market day, and Thursdays everybody did the wash. I don't know. But it makes no sense at all. But it does depress the vote. It does depress the vote. They have it on a work day. That was one thing I learned. I didn't learn a lot this weekend, I have to tell you. Okay, so the thing that happened here, which also showed a lack of interest on the part of Democrats, I understand, the election, the special election to fill the seat vacated by the hypocritical adulterer Tim Murphy. That congressional election is set for March 16th. And both parties have now chosen their representatives. The Republicans last week, with a guy who boasted, "I was Trump before Trump was Trump." Something to that effect. That would be Saccone. Is that how he pronounces his name? Rick Saccone. I mean, he's just a total gun-toting, crazed right-winger. And the Democrats over the weekend decided who would run against him for a seat that I think most people think it will be a difficult pickup for the Democrats. But in these days, maybe it's in play. And I suspect it is in play if the Democrats pick the right candidate. I don't know if they did. I met this guy once. His name is Connor Lamb. I met him at a Planned Parenthood event. He was a well-spoken guy who hadn't decided to get into the race at that point, but I remember encouraging him to because he seemed pretty impressive to me. But what the hell do I know? He's young. He's 33 years old. I mean, he has the kind of bona fides that would make him a potential upset winner in that he's a former Marine. That's got to play well with, people, independents who tend to go with Republicans. But here's a young Democrat. He's a former Marine, and he was a prosecutor. So he put bad guys in jail. Those are two good things. And I don't know how good a campaigner he will prove to be. But he's got a real fine line to walk if he's gonna wrest control of that district, that unbelievably, ridiculously gerrymandered district to I forgot where that started. To the Republicans or the Democrats to take it away. You get my point. Damn it. I'm sorry, I'm not in a good state. So we'll see. The race is on. The reason I said, apparently, I forget how many Democrats were able to vote in this thing that happened this weekend. You had to be somebody in the party to do it. There were some, 500 some eligible. And Did even half of those 500 show up? About that. So here is, I got to tell you, there were hundreds of people in the party who have some position in the Democratic Party they have to be in that district, I would imagine. And this is the most consequential vote and meeting that they will be asked to participate in, I would think, in years and years and years and years and years, a chance to take the district back. And, I mean, like over 200 of them didn't even show up to vote. I mean, we rail against the voters for not voting. These are people that are involved with the Democratic Party. That is so dispiriting to me. So, don't know. Timothy Egan, op-ed writer, New York Times. Headline, look in the mirror. We're with stupid. Completely said what I think I've been saying for a long time. The problem with our country is it's made up of a lot of stupid people. I'm sorry. Uneducated, incurious, lambs ready to be led by any smooth-talking snake oil salesman who comes down the pike. We have a nation that has absolutely no foundational unifiers anymore. And none of this is new. We know that. But when you have a huge percentage of the American population that can no longer tell fact from fiction, then you tell me how our country is supposed to move forward. I mean, if that number's as high as 40%, which I suspect it is, maybe at times even higher, then our problem isn't that the Russians played us. It's that we are so playable by anybody. As Egan puts it, a whole bunch of Americans are absolutely not equipped to perform the basic functions of citizenship. And I've said over and over, not knowing which founding father I was quoting, but that the only way this works is to have an informed citizenry. And we have a disinformed citizenry. And as I said, incurious, irresponsible, no sense whatsoever of having a important, serious role to play in the keeping of our democracy. If you ask people in this country about just basic stuff about how our government functions, they don't know it. I mean, they don't know there's 3 branches of government. They don't know what checks and balances mean. Asked to, I mean, you see these things all the time and it just blows you away. But asked to say, name one branch of the U.S. government. 1 in 3 Americans can't come up with one. We have a call. Hello, caller.
Hello, Lynn. It's Dave from Washington.
Hi, Dave.
I see literally hundreds of people one-to-one every week at my job, and they have to provide birth certificates and stuff like that. So, and on occasion, I will ask, like maybe every third or fourth person, who was president the day you were born? And I get like maybe 1 out of 10, 1 out of 8 that can answer that question.
I bet.
And it's not just kids. I mean, it's older people. People born in the 40s, 50s, 60s. Can't answer that question. I had a kid the other day. He's filling out the application, and I heard him ask his mom, "How do you spell Washington?" And I said, "What? You don't know how to spell Washington?" And he said, "They didn't teach us that in school." And I said, "Oh," and I even said the word bullshit. They sure as hell, you live in Washington, for God's sakes. You don't know how to spell the word. I am so glad that I'm getting old and that I'm going to be dead soon, probably 10, 15, 20 years, because this country is doomed. Just a nation of idiots. 30 years ago, I think the GOP set out to destroy the Department of Education because stupid people are easy to manipulate and easy to get to vote for you, and they have succeeded beyond their wildest dreams.
I agree completely, and I mean, that's why I'm sorry. I try not to give in to hopelessness, but I don't see much to give me hope. I don't.
No, the American experiment lasted, 220-some years?
Almost, yeah.
And it was all fine and dandy, but,
right.
I think it's run its course.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I mean, only incredible hubris would make us think that something about the United States democracy was special and it would go on longer than anybody else's, or in perpetuity. Ain't true, because it's as good as gone. My producer here, Stephen Caruso, he said when he was in elementary school, he learned how to spell the city he lived in. And it was a lot harder than Washington. It was Poughkeepsie. I didn't know it had a double E. It's Poughkeepsie? That's the... Poughkeepsie is how it's... Okay. If you hadn't held it up, I did know it was Pough something, but then I might have gotten wrong on the Keepsy. I always felt sorry for the kids who had, Polish names or, really long. In Green Bay, where I was a kid, there weren't a lot of, there were a lot of Polish names, but they were mostly like Vanden Langenberg. they were these long Dutch, Belgian, something like names, or Greek names. Oh, those kids, yeah, that's tough too. So they didn't teach us how to spell it, Jesus. So I mean, I don't want to be a bummer, but when 1 in 3 Americans cannot name a single branch of government, and yet they can vote. You tell me how this is supposed to work. And, famously, was it just last year? NPR tweeted out sections of the Declaration of Independence to, I think it was it the 4th of July? Yeah. It was this year, the 4th of July. NPR tweeted out, it was a good idea. Let's just, to celebrate, tweet out these things for the Declaration of Independence. And they were met with an onslaught of enraged people from the Twitterverse who thought they were spreading, communistic propaganda? They thought for sure it was anti-Trump. They knew that. It was our Declaration of Independence. Lincoln famously said, a house divided, can, against itself, I want to get the quote right, and I'm not, cannot stand. Well, a house filled by a bunch of friggin' idiots can't stand either. I'll tell you that. So Timothy Egan was promulgating an idea. He said, how about, since now apparently we don't teach civics or government much in elementary school, back in my day, and I'm an old one, we had civics, year after year. We had years of it. And we understood how the government worked. Part of the thing about public schools was a desire on the part of government to instill the values of citizenship in the little kids who would come in to be educated. Because the only way to hold the democracy, the great thing that had been given to us, was to ensure that generation after generation understood the importance of their role as a citizen. That's not a big deal anymore. I've spoken many, many, many times, decades ago, how citizenship is something that is of no importance in the greater scheme of things anymore. We are no longer citizens. We're another word that begins with C. Consumers. And that's our job. To spend money, sometimes money we don't have, to keep the economy going. Which is why I was struck dumb when George W. Bush, a few days after 9/11, told us all, who would have, as I've said many times, crawled on broken glass if he'd asked us to. Only asked of us one thing. Go shopping, he said. Go shopping. You could mark the end of the experiment right there. Timothy Egan's idea is that in order to graduate from high school, you have to be able to pass the same test that immigrants to this country pass in order to be allowed to be citizens of the country. And I'd like to get my hands on the test so we could see it and take it. You probably have it there. I'm willing to bet that most of us can pass this test. But apparently a whole bunch cannot. There's questions like, what ocean is on the west coast of the United States? And you might think, you mean people don't? You mean that's a question? Yeah, it's a question that a lot of people get wrong. They don't know. They can't even place the United States on a map when shown a map of the world. Shouldn't you have to? Apparently, 12, 13, 14 states in this country do now have this rule. In order to get out of your high school and get a diploma, you do have to pass that citizenship test. But that's a low bar, actually. It's a low bar. And the reality is, I think very few people could pass it. Not very few people, but I don't know what I'm saying. It's just so depressing. But it's true. We're with stupid. If you're an American. I did not get the test. Oh, did you? You mean you sent it to me? What, are you calling me an immigrant? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, I got the test. Here it is. I think. Or not. It says what? Oh, it's still loading. Okay. Who is in charge of the executive branch? And get this. It's multiple choice. The Chief Justice? The President? The Speaker of the House? Or the Majority Whip? Who is in charge of the executive branch? Oh, dear. Well, how do I get the rest? I don't see how I can move on this one, frankly. It's just staying right there. But that's the level of questions. And we are saying that is... Click it? Oh, I see. If I click the right answer, they'll give it. Yes. I got it right. Oh, my God. How many U.S. senators are there? This is getting really tough. Now, if you learned in civics class that there are 50 states and each state gets 2 senators, you have to get into your mathematical skills there. 2 times 50, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, it's 100. I got that right. I'm doing pretty good. We elect a president for how many years? These are the questions. And people, what? If 1 in 3 can't name a single branch of government, then how? Oh, dear in heaven. If the president can no longer serve, who becomes president? Here are your choices. The First Lady. Okay, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Go one more? Okay, hang on. I'm the vice president, by the way. Okay, let's see. Next question. Who vetoes bills? That was not right? Okay, that's the president. I'm acing. I am so fucking acing this. What are the 2 major political parties in the United States? Here are your choices. Law and Order, Liberty and Justice, Democrat and Republican, or Checks and Balances. Oh, my God. I bet this is seriously dumbed down from what it was 15, 20 years ago. I would like to see the test from 20 years ago. And I'm willing. I want to see if you can find that, because I am willing to bet it was a lot tougher. I really am. How old do citizens have to be to vote for the president? All right. Come on. When was the Declaration of Independence adopted? Oh, dear God in heaven. December 7th, 1941 is one of the choices. Jesus H. Call. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Good
Clarence.
morning.
Clarence.
Clarence.
The polls come out about Trump support. It's usually between 35 and 40%.
Around in there. It's like 40-ish, yeah.
Yeah. It fluctuates between 35 and 40. And people are like, I'm so surprised that many people support Trump. Then I point out that 50% of the population is below average intelligence.
Yes.
So, if it's 40%, there's still 10% of people below average intelligence who don't support him. Now, this is like the thing you're talking about here. If 1 in 3 people don't know this stuff,
right.
So you got to keep in mind where 50% of the people are below average intelligence. If that makes any sense, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, it should be no surprise that 33% of the people aren't going to be able to answer those questions. Because it's not. I don't think it really has anything to do with it probably does, teaching civics class. Because I'm on Facebook, it's amazing how many people don't, understand basic Constitution, basic how the government works and things like that. I'm surprised about it. But I always say, well, maybe they're in that 33%. They seem like they should know, and they argue like they think they know or whatever, but they just don't know. I think ignorance is more sometimes more of the answer than just plain stupidity.
Yeah. No, it's ignorance more than stupidity. Right.
Yeah,
but an ignorant voter is a stupid voter. Right?
This is true. But the problem is, I think that's come up is that, what do they call it, like anti-elitism. So even if you say to them, well, you're wrong about this, well, what is that? You're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. Their opinions become facts in their minds.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can't argue. You can't even show them anything. If you show them something, it's some kind of conspiracy theory, or something. Or I don't know how to get around it. Everything's an attack on their something or another.
Yeah. I just got my first question wrong.
What was it?
Otherwise,
I can answer it.
No, I just finished and I got everything right, but that one, that was embarrassing.
Which one was it? I didn't hear.
It was how many amendments are there in the Constitution?
Oh, crap. I don't know. 28?
I think that's what I said, but I was one off. I can't.
What is it, 27?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to go back. Yeah,
Okay.
No. So that's the one I got wrong. But I got 23 out of 24 correct. But I have to tell you, this was a joke. Pretty much. Really.
Yeah. I wonder when they stop teaching civics as much, Does that have anything to do with, like, teaching to the test and all that kind of good stuff?
Well, that is part of it. I think that's what they say. Mm-hmm. You had to get stuff out so you could just let teachers simply, essentially, that's like cheating, teaching to the test. What does that mean? That means you already know
the purpose of it.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, we're so fucked. Excuse me.
Yeah, I said we were doomed in the 90s, and I still haven't backed off of that.
All right. So, always a man ahead of your time. I know.
Okay, have a good day.
All right, yeah, you too. Right. Bye. Oh, God dang it. I'm embarrassed I got that one wrong. I was guessing. Was it 20? I think the right answer is 26. How many amendments to the Constitution? What was the last amendment to the Constitution? I don't know. I mean, if I thought about it a long time, I might. I don't know. Roger writes. Can you tell my eyes are getting bad? The observation that our citizens don't know basic knowledge of how our government works reminded me that before the election, my coworkers, all Trump voters, came to me with questions on how the primaries work and the Electoral College. So you're the resident pointy-headed elitist, huh? The only positives anyone could take out of the 2000 and 2016 elections is some were educated on how the Electoral College process gets presidents elected. Yeah, that did let people know that you don't have to win the most votes in this country to win the office. There's 27 amendments. I think I said 26. I said 26 or 28, but I got it wrong. Roger says, I did try to convince them that Election Day was moved to Wednesday, but that didn't work. They were sharper than you thought. So, we have a call, I believe. Caller, hi.
Hello, Lynn?
Yes.
Yes, I want to talk about this officer that got shot in New Kensington.
Okay.
And I want to preface my statements by saying I'm a white guy. All right.
Okay.
If I watched one of the local newscasts Saturday night. They did 10 minutes on this officer. Okay. Yeah. If, as in happened in many cases, an innocent black kid gets shot, do you think they do 10 minutes on that kid? I don't think so.
No.
Okay. If I'm an African American, you know what I'm thinking today? Well, we're just evening the score here, okay? And the score isn't even close to being even. The only way this could have been better is if this cop was married with a few little kids, and then maybe people could relate to how black families feel when an innocent black kid gets shot multiple times for no reason. I'm tired of it, okay?
Okay. I don't know what to say to you. I mean, That was a senseless murder. And I don't
Yes,
want.
but
I
if
don't
this
watch.
guy is caught,
I
he'll
don't
be
watch.
prosecuted.
Yeah, I don't watch local news because of
But
their.
when a black kid gets shot, it goes to
No,
the court, or and they say, "Well, we can't do anything about it. He was innocent. Sorry, I'm not going to feel sorry for him. I'm not going to feel until the score is even. Until black people are treated fairly, I'm not going to feel sorry for him." Thank you.
Okay. I can't go where I understand the point the caller is making, but evening the score I don't think is the way to go about fixing things. We have a call. Hello, caller.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Hi. Apologize for the voice. Got a cold. I'm 60, and when I was about I don't know, maybe 12, 13, 14, I helped. My parents were from Italy, and I helped my mom study for the test. And I can assure you, it was much more difficult.
Yeah.
There were things I didn't know that she had to know, and I learned a lot helping her study for that test. I didn't think she'd pass it because I thought it was so difficult, and she did. So I wanted to say that.
All right. Well,
I don't believe it was.
I'm just saying I'm not surprised because I'm sure that it was a tougher test before. Yeah.
Oh, I can distinctly remembering, and I was a very good student in school, and I can distinctly remember thinking, my God, I didn't know this. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom, who spoke broken English, is going to have to learn this. I mean, I did not know. And then afterwards, she had to. I remember she had to take the test, and it was written. And then she went into a room with, I don't know if it was a judge or whatever, and they asked her, and he asked her questions that she had to know. She said she was so scared because she didn't know if she was getting the answers right. And so it was much, much more difficult. But this was, like I'm saying, this is back in the 60s, I think. And one other thing, I just returned from the West Coast to visit my family, and my brother, who I love dearly, and who is not ignorant or anything, we didn't talk politics too much, but in the conversation, both my brother and my sister-in-law said, "Well, you can't believe anything on the news anymore," and that just floored me.
Yeah. Isn't that nice? Because it resolved. I mean, if somebody buys into that, then they're absolved of all responsibility, right? Because
yes,
I cannot, how do I know everything is a lie? So I guess I just look after myself. I mean, what the hell? Throwing babies out with bathwater. Yeah.
But not only that, it to me, I thought, if you don't believe the news, I think they would watch like something like CBS in the morning or something like that. But if you can't, it just showed me that I don't know. It struck this cold thing in my heart because it was like we if you can't believe anything the news puts out anymore, then I can like if Mueller says Trump did something wrong, well, you can't believe that anymore. My brother, I just couldn't believe he said that. Anyway, that was it.
Thank you.
I think you're right. I think this is the end of our democracy. I really do.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you. Bye.
Uh-huh.
Bye. Bye. Thank you. And don't ever apologize for the way your voice sounds when you call this show. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I mean, really. Milton's telling me it was Thomas Jefferson who said that it requires an informed citizenry. Well, he's lucky he's dead. He doesn't have to see this. Jesus. I found myself behind a car the other day in Squirrel Hill that had a sign in its window I couldn't read, but it was clearly, I could read the Trump, but there was all this other stuff. And it turns out the woman driving that car was going exactly where I was going, and she took my parking spot. So I went around the block a few times, and finally I got to park. And before I went into the store I was going into, I went back to her car to satisfy my curiosity about just what that sign said. First, let me describe the car, because as I approached the car, I thought, gee whiz. This car was a Jaguar, or Jaguar, as people seem to say around here. It was a Jaguar, the biggest Jaguar I've ever seen in my life. It was this big, long, sleek, black thing. And on the side, it had like silver embellishments. This car easily cost well over $100,000. I mean, well over $100,000. And I walked to the back and I looked, because usually a car like that, you don't see bumper stickers on cars like that, right? I finally see the sticker, and it says something to the effect of, proud deplorable Trump. And then I walked into the store. I wanted to get an eyeball. I wanted to see her. And I walked in, and she was a woman of, I'd say, 60, 62, 63, blonde, very nice shoes. And I just kept staring at her and thinking, see, when people say deplorables, they're not thinking about a rich bitch like you driving that car. They're thinking about uneducated, right? Uneducated hicks, right? Well, this proud deplorable was a very rich white lady. Very, very rich white lady. Unapologetic and willing to put on her $150,000 Jaguar a bumper sticker that said, proud deplorable Trump. Oh. We have a call. Hello, caller.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey.
Hey, John from Greensburg.
I know.
Yeah, I've been guilty of succumbing to the sentiment expressed by the New York Times writer and by yourself and Clarence as well. But then I try to check myself and think about what has occurred in times past in this nation, and find myself wondering if, to put it, I suppose, in professional wrestling vernacular, by The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, if we aren't acting like a bunch of candy asses. I mean, there was a time where, people were dying by the hundreds of thousands in an attempt to preserve the Union. There was a time where, religious and racial minorities, especially, black Americans, were essentially subject to not only being treated like second or third class citizens or enslaved, but they could be essentially, assaulted, raped, or murdered at will by the majority population. I mean, we once had to face down the onslaught of an actual fascist juggernaut in the form of the Axis powers. And, I sometimes just find it, but maybe that's another indication. I suppose the pessimist in me would say that's another indication that we are doomed, because this is how we're responding. We face this peril, and we turn to jelly. We're not fighting back. We're not roused as we should be. we're not adamant in our resolve. I suppose that could be said as well.
Okay, hey, listen, I'm having a little trouble hearing. It's a bad connection or something, John. I'm gonna let you go. I think I heard what you were saying, and I thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay, thank you. We have another call. Hello?
Hello, Lynn.
Yes.
Oh, hey, let's not forget the hatred of Clinton when Trump got in there, too. If we'd had probably Biden, we probably would have won. I mean, we're giving these people more credit than, you know what I mean?
Well,
There's
we don't
a lot
know.
of factors in.
Yeah.
Well,
There's no proving it. We don't know. Yeah. It is what it is. We lost.
I mean, he's got this country screwed up already with his stuff he's done, but I kind of think after the next elections, then I'll let you know if I'm ready to throw in the towel or whatever. I still think it's going to be screwed up. I don't agree it's going to come back the way it was, but I'm hoping for the next election. That's the only glimmer, real small glimmer of hope. Other than that, I'm kind of with that Dave on that.
Okay.
You know.
All right. Well, thank you.
Then. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
If Dave is the guy who, anyway, I just want to say that the guy who called who said he was white and watched the news about the cop and ended up saying that about the black people want to even the score or something. I really didn't follow it because it was off-putting to me. I'm glad to see that Clarence has emailed because he reacted strongly to it. And again, just to note his bona fides, Clarence is classified in this country as an African-American male. The very type that is, in the sights of so many cops in this country. Clarence wrote to that caller in caps, which I've never seen him do. No, 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 no. It is that type of mindset that creates Klansmen and Nazis. The belief that black people want to even the score. No! Clarence, thank you. Yeah. Right. There's no evening the score. And that's not the way to... Okay. Can you answer these 10 questions? Okay. These are tougher. The House of Representatives has how many voting members? 450... 436, 400, I don't know. It's 500, 400, what? 35? Fine. Who's the Chief Justice of the United States? So these were not multiple choice, I guess. John Roberts. Under the Constitution, some powers belong to the states. What is one power of the states? To gerrymander their districts? I think that's right, to gerrymander their voting districts. Why did colonists fight the British? They felt they were being unfairly taxed and they wanted representation. Isn't that correct? That's one of the things. Oh, dear. The Federalist Papers supported the passage of the U.S. Constitution. Name one of the writers. Oh, God. What territory did the United States buy from France? In 1803, and before he was president, Eisenhower was a general. What war was he in? Oh, come on. Name one of the two longest rivers in the U.S. The Mississippi? And the what? And the... What's the other one?
Missouri.
The Missouri?
Missouri.
You're right. The Mississippi and the Missouri. Geez, my answer didn't... Okay. See, that would have been a tough... So, okay, those were tougher. I mean, anytime it comes to numbers like that, what difference does it make if I know 436 or 454, whatever the hell it is? It's a whole bunch of people. I mean, I don't know. Numbers don't matter. I'd like people to understand the concepts that our country was founded on. Susie writes, election days, no matter what day of the week they're on, should be national holidays. There you go. For national elections and state holidays for primary and state holidays for primaries. I don't know. But yeah, if you really care about allowing people to vote, then, right, you make it as easy as possible. You sure as hell don't have elections on Tuesdays. Oh, what else I got here? Well, this has been an odd show, and I'm sorry about my mood. But I can't. I mean, I know you guys understand because you're dealing with it. I saw one column that I thought was interesting, and I need to think about it more, but it does make sense. There was a piece arguing that the minimum wage should not be across the board, that there should be some sense of regional differences in terms of quality of life, standard of living. In other words, $15 an hour is a poverty wage in New York City or San Francisco. It's a pretty okay kind of wage in some little town somewhere in the South or the Midwest, right? And they're saying that, I mean, if you just look at like what a breakfast of eggs over easy, some bacon, and maybe some hash browns, blah, 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 costs, generally speaking, in Boston, as opposed to what it costs in some little place in Oklahoma City or near Oklahoma, and there's a differential of $3, $4, $5. Why isn't that taken into consideration? A dozen eggs costs $4 in Oakland, California. It costs 93 cents in Fargo. And so these guys are arguing that cost of living should be taken into consideration when trying to figure out what is a sensible minimum wage. And they think a national minimum wage should have different ranges that recognize the difference in living costs and in what, yeah. I mean, I think that makes sense, actually, and could lessen any opposition. I mean, you could see where a senator or representative representing a place where the cost of living is relatively low would say $15 an hour, you're going to put our small businesses out of business. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it makes some sense, a kind of a tiered, different levels of minimum wage. And they argue that in many states I was thinking, well, if that's the case, people will just move. You know, I'm living somewhere where the minimum wage is $7. I think I'm going to more than double that if I move over here. But in fact, they don't. It stays pretty much the same because of the difference in the cost of living. Allow states and cities to set higher wages. And they say this: we are one country, but we are hundreds of different microeconomies. And we're all grappling with these technological forces that are changing the nature of work. And we need to be smarter about how we react. It's just something to think about, is all I'm saying. And I believe we are out of time. Thank you very much. Thanks for all those calls. Actually, it's funny because Stephen and I were worrying that our phones weren't working today. And except for John's call, which was a little muddled, really had trouble understanding what he was saying. I hope you did not as much as I did. Yeah, it worked really well. So thank you. It was great to hear from you. And tomorrow, my sister Susan will join us. I'll be here Wednesday, and then toodaloo, we got turkeys to eat Thursday and Friday. I'm going. Okay? So see you tomorrow. Have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.